It's been more than 75 years since Imperial Japanese soldiers occupied Kimbokdong's village in Korea. But the memories of war and what she endured to stay alive still haunt her.
It went on for such a long time. By the time the sun went down, I couldn't use my lower body at all.
For 5 years, Kim says she was a, quote, comfort woman, a forced sex slave for Japanese troops. She says it's taken a permanent toll.
In my old age, I couldn't have a single person who can call me mother. I couldn't never have a child.
Kim and others like her, along with their families, are demanding that Japan's present-day leaders issue an unequivocal apology for the country's pastime atrocities. These protesters in Washington, D.C. were hoping Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe would use his speeches here to do just that. But his words, they say, still fall short.
He expresses some of his feeling, but we don't regard it as an apology. It's more like a very vague, unclear, and kind of a very, as a bystander, without any guilt.
It's a sentiment echoed on America's other coast in San Francisco, where ethnic Korean demonstrators who gathered outside of the Japanese consulate were joined by ethnic Chinese ones. During the war, Imperial Japan occupied large parts of China and is blamed for the so-called rape of Nanjing in eastern China during the late 1930s. Beijing says some 300,000 Chinese nationals were murdered, and that past apologies from Tokyo, which lacked an admission of Japan's aggression, are invalid.
They do not admit the fact that they were the ones that committed the atrocities. So that's why we need to make Japan realize that they really have not apologized.
Experts say Japanese leaders must be cautious in their rhetoric. Being too apologetic may ignite Japanese nationalists at home. Being not sorry enough may taint Japan's foreign relations.
To one of those audiences, he's making the message, I'm not going to apologize in a meaningful sense. To other audiences, he's saying, well, look, we've apologized 100 times. And to yet another audience, there's the message is, we don't have to apologize.
Abe was actually elected promising to rescind any apologies in whatever form that may have been uttered by his predecessors. Words of remorse, experts say, that either way always lacked any admission of guilt. But in his tightly scripted speech on Wednesday, Abe instead ended up endorsing what previous prime ministers have said regarding Japanese crimes against other Asian nations, without going further in either direction. Roee, Ruttenberg, CCTV in Washington.